Herzlich willkommen im Klangloft. Wir sind auf Zypern bei Aries Cerat, haben hier ein wirklich kleines, schnuckliges Produkt uns diesmal genommen. Das ist der Protos, der Vollverstärker, der kleinste Vollverstärker in dem Angebot von Aries Cerat. Es ist aus der Janus-Serie, das heißt, wir haben wieder Triad Fat im Einstiegsbereich. Das ist also der am ehesten erschwingliche, jedoch immer noch nicht ganz günstige Vollverstärker von Aries Cerat. Claudius kennt ihr ja schon. Stavros Danos ist der Macher, der Kopf hinter Aries Cerat. Wir schalten gleich auf Englisch um, weil Griechisch fanden wir ein bisschen komisch. Würde wahrscheinlich für euch nicht so gut kommen. Gehen wir auf Englisch und lassen uns so ein bisschen von Stavros erklären, was macht der Protos. Möchtest du auch noch Hallo sagen oder legen wir los?
Grüßt euch alle zusammen. Hello aus Zypern. Hier mit einem weiteren Masterpiece aus dem Hause Aries Cerat. Ich bin schockverliebt. Wie ihr seht, ist es endlich mal ein Gerät, was auch ich als alter, schwacher Mann ohne Probleme durch die Gegend tragen kann. Ausgelagertes Netzteil, Vollverstärker. Technische Details, Star Wars. Tolle Maschine.
Ja, dann let's switch to English. We're happy to have you in our video. And yes, we're anxious to know what is the DNA of a Protos. Where does it come from? What is the thing?
I think Protos is, it was, let's say, a natural event in the series of our Janus series expansion. So, as I said, the Protos was a natural evolution of the Janus series. After the Sentia launch, the monoblocks, we launched the Aperio, which was, let's say, squeezed down or a compact version of two Sentias in two chassis with a transformer volume control. The simplest integrated, it can exist one stage from input to output. So we wanted to expand the lineup towards smaller and more affordable series, and we kind of wanted to, as we replaced most of our tube lineup with the Janus series. I think the natural thing was to replace the Janus. So the aim was to make a squeezed down version of Aperio, trying to do our best effort to make Aperio as small as possible without much compromise. So the Protos came directly from that lineup of the Aperio. First, we decided that maybe we could start with the headphone amplifier, but it was not possible to make something smaller than this. So Protos is actually the smallest triad fed design we can produce. It's because of the minimum complexity issues of the triad fed. So this is, let's say, the first entry to this series. So how do we go from Aperio, which is a 110 kilo device, to something much smaller and much simpler? Obviously, we have to cut down some power. So Protos comes at half the power of Aperio. It's 20 watt, but it's stable down to 1 ohm, so it doesn't misbehave. Even if you go very, very low impedance, you go lower in power output, but it will not misbehave with very low loads like all the rest of the lineup. We had to change the volume control because the TVC is too complex to, let's say, the space requirements could not fit in such a small device, and also the cost requirements. So we decided to have, let's say, the simplest design in triad fed, which came up performing much way above its targeted, performance benchmark we wanted to give to this device. So in a way, it is a big surprise for us, the level of performance we were able to get from this device. But at the same time, it's not that surprise because it's a Aperio DNA with with smaller enough power supplies, for example, to fit in a single chassis, slightly less sizable output transformers, but basically it's the same principle and same circuit as a full Aperio. So that's how we end up with this performance from this small sort of amplifier.
So single stage means you don't have an input stage and output stage.
No.
So the signal comes in.
The signal comes in, the volume control is on its input, and it's a resistor ladder switch with relays. So only two resistors are in the signal at each time, and a series of resistors are switched from a combination of relays.
Wir sind in der Werkstatt, hier wird gearbeitet. Es werden praktisch geschmiedet. Nein, es wird nicht geschmiedet, aber alles gut. Yes.
And it feeds directly to a single stage triad FET circuit. So it's only one active stage from the RCAs to the banning post. It's only one stage. The triad FET doesn't have any driver or input stage. It does not get simpler than that, and that's how it keeps intact all the musicality and the resolution of the music signal.
What they always ask me is, well, is it a hybrid now, or why do you have the valves, and how does it amplify? That's the question we always get.
The thought experiment, if you want to distinguish between, let's say, hybrid and, let's say, a true single stage, is if, let's say, you have the circuit, the triad FET, and you remove all solid-state devices, will the tube drive the load? The answer is yes. So in a hybrid, if you remove, it's a tube driving, let's say, a solid-state or solid-state a tube. If you remove one of them, the circuit is not conducting. If you remove the tube, the solid-state will not drive the load. If you remove the solid-state, the tube cannot drive the load. In this circuit, the tube drives the load even if there is no solid state in the signal. The triad FET will magnify and mimic the transfer curves of the tube which is used in the signal. And the tube is doing pretty much all the work in terms of sonics. If you measure, let's say, the tube without the triad FET and then with the triad FET, the distortion distribution is identical. You cannot distinguish them with on the spectrum analyzer. It behaves exactly like a tube. That's why it comes. It sounds like it sounds in single stage. It's as pure as it gets.
So it is. Is it what is it now? Is it a single stage
triad FET?
Triad FET. But what is a triad FET?
Triad FET, in a way, it is a circuit that mimics a triad. So it is not hybrid in a way that it's a tube driving a solid state or a solid state a tube.
Yes.
But if you see it like a closed box with 3 terminals, it behaves exactly like a triad, but you can design circuits which were not possible if that, let's say, component did not exist. Because you can drive very simple tube-like circuits like this single-ended triad transformer coupled amplifier, which could not be designed otherwise. If you had only a solid state device or a tube device, you could not design such a simple device. Of course, single stage tube amps can exist, or solid state single ended.
Yes.
Solid state can exist, but not with these, let's say, power levels and with this gain and with these, let's say, distortion characteristics.
So it takes different tubes.
Yes.
So we can put 280s, EF 280s, 282.
It can. You can load it with any tube of the family of the 280. They were called super pendots, like 280, E810, fantastic tube, E282, some Russian equivalent, which are very, very nice surprise for us to have in the lineup, because they were mainly designed to sometimes be an equivalent of Western tubes, but some Russian types are, let's say, standalone type of designs, which are very, very nice sounding tubes, which can work with this particular design. For example, the Protos comes with standard fit with a tube named 6J11PE, which is, there is no equivalent in Western tubes. It's like a hybrid between the 810 and the 280. And in my opinion, it sounds in the middle of these two. So it's a very, very nice find, very, very wide available and low priced. So you can have a really low maintenance tube amp. It can go for 10,000 hours.
And what I find interesting is you put a different tube inside, and the whole DNA, the whole sound changes towards that tube. So it's like you exchange the DNA of the sound with the tube.
Because that's a testament, because the triad does not have a sound of its own. It mimics what is copying. It's copying the transfer curves. So the tube used will impose its character to the amplifier. The amplifier itself has minimum, let's say, sonic character. The tube itself will determine. That's why you have completely different character when you change the tubes.
Yes.
You still have, let's say, the core sound of the triad FET, this very fast and very pure, transparent sound. But the sound will completely drift depending on which tube you used, which is very, nice tool, because not all systems are the same, not all speakers are the same, especially taste. People like have to have small variations in their sound reproduction. So it's a very nice tuning tool.
And the tubes are not expensive. We're not talking about 1,000 per tube or something.
No, not only that, they can go forever. It's not like power tubes, which you have to have a significant budget aside for changing tubes every 1 or 2 years. But you can install a tube and go for 10,000 hours easy if they're not.
So they last extremely long.
Yes.
And they're not expensive.
Yes, it's a true low maintenance amplifier tube.
So it is a tube amplifier without the bad sides of tubes. Buying expensive power tubes.
Yes. That's the thing with the
without a lot of heat as well.
Yes, if we compare it with the Genus, it's probably a third of its power consumption, third to a fourth, depending on your bias, with roughly the same power.
Yeah, what we experienced is we connected different types of speakers, even difficult to drive speakers like 82 dB speakers, efficiency. And we thought, well, 20 watts, that's going to be difficult. It's not going to work. It's probably going to get lame and slow. And we were like, what the fuck? It was just driving them, like kicking them in the ass. It was like unexpected. We thought, 20 watts, wow, okay, that's not going to work with an 82, 84 dB speaker. But, oh, man, it works. We connected the Big Thing team, which really like power, like 100, 150 watts at least. And we connected it and it was like, okay, no problem at all. It was like, okay.
The triad FET system, like in most of our designs, in the rails doesn't have a fuse, but it has an electrical fuse, which will detect, without being online in series with the signal, it will detect overcurrent and shut the amplifier down. And this is another, for example, of what we try to simplify and remove things that do affect the sound. So you say a fuse affects the sound, use a better fuse. We say don't use a fuse, use an electrical fuse, which is the system we use on Ascendias and on Perio.
So we don't have a fuse at all?
Fuse is on, yeah.
No, we have on the power supply.
Of course, yes.
Okay, but not inside the device, which could compromise the signal.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the thing is, you don't use things that are compromising the sound and not necessary in most cases.
Okay, so you started with a headphone amp. So
Yes.
does it still drive a headphone amp?
Yes, you can drive headphones.
Do we have a connector for it?
There is a 4-pin XLR in the back. You can drive it. It uses the same outputs as the speakers, so you can pretty much drive any headphone with even very, very low impedances.
Mm-hmm. So what else? We have a remote control.
Yeah, we have the remote, standard functions, left-right balance.
And then we have an external PSU. Why didn't you make it just the whole thing bigger and put the PSU inside?
It's not just a matter of bigger. You can even, if you squeeze a little bit of space, you can put the power transformer inside. The problem is if you have a circuit which uses transformers, signal transformers, these things they are, regardless if you shield them enough or not, they are like antennas for magnetic interference.
Mm-hmm.
So that transformer is like a big transmitter of magnetic interference. However you want to shield it, the best shield is physical separation.
Mm-hmm.
So we, instead of putting inside and using a ton of shielding, which will not be as effective as just putting 1 meter away the transformer, we decided to go the extra mile and just spend the extra cost of putting it externally, and it just works better. The better isolation is physical isolation.
Mm-hmm. So we can change sound DNA with tubes, and we can even change the bias of the tubes while the device is on and playing.
Yes, a nice tuning feature is, like all of our devices, is you can change the bias. In the triode fed circuits, the effect is even much more pronounced because you shift the operating point of the tube, which means you change what part of the transfer curves are copied. So you'll change the whole signature of the amplifier just by moving the operating point. So it's not just the triode fed itself that will change its operating point, but what part of the triode fed of the triode curves are copied. So that's why in triode fed circuits, bias has much more pronounced effect than, let's say, a single-ended amplifier.
Mm-hmm. And can you do it wrong, so you bias it and the tubes will fail faster, or is there some protection if you go too high with the bias?
There is protection. We always limit the bias range that the user can use. Mm-hmm. So we always try to, let's say, narrow down the useful range for the user. But there are 2 front meters. We put them on the front fascia, so you don't need to open the amplifier to watch them. So at any time, you know exactly what the amplifier is doing. If your tubes are bad, if your tubes are running hot, if you want to change the bias, you don't need to pull out multimeters or call a technician. You can do it even blindly.
On the fly.
On the fly, that's the most important thing.
While playing.
You don't need to, in order to stop and pull out measuring equipment to change the sound of the device.
Yes, I got to love this device. It was, for me, it was really so clear, so transparent, and still so silky fine. It was. He always says he's felt shock in love in German. Schockverliebt. Yeah, it's for me, it's incredible what you did here in the smallest device in the Janus series.
Yes, I think it's going to have a special place for us because it's going to be the entry point for the brand as well, and for the Janus series. I think it was very important that we were able to squeeze down the technology to a smaller footprint.
Yes, I think if Claudius has some questions or something to say, I will call this a wrap and say thank you, Stavros.
Thank you for visiting.
And see you on High End this year, High End Show Munich. Friedrich 111, F111, big showroom, big stuff we're going to bring this year.
Yes.
Can you maybe tell them a little bit what you're bringing?
We're going to come with the flagship Contendo speakers and with some surprises on electronics. So hopefully we'll see you there.
Yes, please, come by, listen to the Contendo, hört euch die Contendo an. Das ist ein ernsthaftes Erlebnis und die Skala für wie klingt oder was klingt gut verändert sich völlig. Also zumindest war das bei mir so. Claudius kann das ja, wenn er Lust hat, kurz erzählen, wie das für ihn das erste Mal war. Das ist immer schön, weil der Claudius, der erzählt das so schön. Ich nehme einfach mal die Kamera und du kannst ja auch in die hier erzählen, wenn du möchtest.
Ja, ich kann da viel zu erzählen. Also Contendo, meine 40-jährige Erfahrung mit allen möglichen Systemen und Lautsprechertypen und Arten komplett revidiert. Es war nichts mehr wie zuvor. Jetzt übertreibe ich natürlich mal wieder. Ich habe Platten gehört, die ich wirklich sehr, sehr gut kenne, die mich schon sehr, sehr lange begleiten. Star Wars meinte dann irgendwann mal, ey, sag mal, hörst du mal auf mit Musik hören, ich will nach Hause. Ja, nur eine Musik spielen. Ich konnte einfach nicht mehr aufhören, Musik zu hören, weil die Contendo dir ein Erlebnis verschafft, was dem Live-Eindruck, es ist zwar ein bisschen weit hergeholt, aber extrem nahe kommt. Das ist das eine. Das zweite, du kannst sowohl leise als auch in exorbitanten Lautstärken Musik hören, ohne dass es irgendwo lästig wird. Nicht von dieser Welt, um es mit einem komischen Schlagwort zu sagen. Nachdem ich wieder zu Hause war, habe ich bei uns in der Klangloft München die Aurora mit relativ ordentlichen Aries Cerat Geräten angemacht und 5 Minuten gebraucht, um den ganzen Quatsch wieder auszuschalten, weil ich gedacht habe, das kann jetzt irgendwie nicht sein, da muss irgendwas kaputt sein, weil es einfach aus dem Gedächtnis heraus nicht mehr so klang, wie ich es gespeichert habe in den paar Tagen mit der Contendo. Also wenn ihr die Chance nutzen wollt, würden wir uns freuen, wenn ihr uns besucht in München auf der High-End, um die Contendo mal live zu sehen, weil es ist auch optisch beeindruckend. Und natürlich, was an Musik bzw. an Musikwiedergabequalität dort geboten wird. So wie Michael schon gesagt hat, es wird euren Eindruck und eure Idee des Musikhörens beeinflussen, nachhaltig beeinflussen. Danke fürs Gespräch, ich wünsche euch einen schönen Abend.
Ja, bis bald. Tschüss, danke euch.
Bye. Thank you.